welcome back to Crypto. Oh my God, things are looking up. My gosh, guys, I have been here for so long talking about mass adoption, speculating on these tokies and trying to get what you can, but fuck, the adoption curve is here. We are in the hockey stick. It is insane that it is real. It's been a dream for so long. Let's get right into it. Bang. Look, I know you love the regulations. I love the regulations. I got to keep talking about them. We could do the tech all day, but we did it for years. And when you hit a legal wall where the world is just like, nah, B, we don't really care what your tech does, well, there's just no moving forward. So we have to look at the law. This is one of the big innovations. Eventually, blockchains replace the law with cybernetic law, with rules that cannot be broken. That's the end state. But first, we got to get to a little handshake in between. And this comes down to the U.S. House Committee on Financial Services approves the Clarity Act. It's moving forward. It is getting to the finish line. This is happening. Again, the Clarity Bill, the Clarity Act, it does a lot of protections, including the CFTC oversight, kind of like where does the SEC go? Where does the CFTC go? And most close to my heart is protections for DeFi. That means the contracts themselves, that they're not going to be monetary agents of some sort, something regulated that requires a license. And for the coders that launch this stuff, as long as it's decentralized, this is Second Amendment rights. All of these codes, all of these smart contracts, they're just math. They're just balancing acts. They're pre-coded. So these things are actually ideal in a law-abiding world. Like I talked about yesterday, it removes freedom. It constricts the capabilities of what users can do, but it makes it so that we don't need lawyers. We don't need these external administrators. We can just allow the code to function. And that is so exciting to me, and we're moving towards that. So every day, the regulators just push us further towards adoption. And of course, their acceptance is leading to a broader acceptance globally. Now, this is pretty wild to me. I've talked about nation states and the adoptions, Bitcoin reserves in El Salvador and Bhutan, etc. But Ukraine, not only have they gone in and really re-pioneered what war looks like in the modern era, what we saw with the beepers from Israel, with the recent drone attack from Ukraine, we are now looking at hyper-specific, hyper-targeted weaponry, reducing collateral damage, moving from a hot war to these more specific targeted strikes. And this is all fascinating. But as Napoleon was wont to say, wars are won in the supply chain. And realistically, to fight, to continue moving, you need food, you need supplies, you need the weaponry, obviously, but you need funding as well. This has been something that Ukraine has been shouting to the moon. We need financial backing. So it is interesting to me to watch Ukraine, who I put in a special niche versus those other countries that I mentioned, because Ukraine's in a position where they need things now. This isn't really thinking about stacking Bitcoin for the future. This isn't thinking about what does 20 years, 100 years look like. They are saying, hey, we are up against the wall. We are in dire straits. And if the rules are going to be what hold us back, then fuck it. We have to break those rules or standards, however you want to look at it. And by putting a strategic Bitcoin reserve underneath everything that they've got going on, so the National Bank of Ukraine may hold Bitcoin, this is getting pretty fascinating. Also with the visibility that they have in the global news sphere. So I'm very curious to see how this translates, how this works. Does this mean that if they put in some blockchain-based assets, that there's another venue to move money in and out of the country for anyone that so desires? Anonymous is very pro-Ukraine. They could set up like a crypto funding account, and let's say they put this in their strategic reserve. You could send funds directly to the Bank of Ukraine. You could literally fund it directly from your wallet. Ukraine's success. So another fascinating point. Again, we're looking at the regulators becoming open, becoming more broadly accepting. This is mass adoption on the legal side. We're seeing Ukraine, we're seeing these other nations start to acquire Bitcoin, start to acquire Ethereum, start to acquire other assets. This is mass adoption on a nation state level and the understanding and the access that these provide. And man, last but not least, just like huge news coming out today, similar to the Circle IPO, we're seeing the demand for blockchain technology, but Privy announced today that they are being acquired by Stripe. So this is maybe one of the biggest pieces of mass adoption news that I have heard in a very long time. Let me break it down for you. Privy builds blockchain features. They build infrastructure tools. They start with the wallet, and really they are a product for other applications to build in access to the on-chain world. So it makes a lot of sense that Stripe would go and buy them. Now let's look at Stripe for a moment, because one important thing to realize about fintech, the financial technology sector in Web 2, is that it's actually really fucking dumb. What it is, and this started with PayPal, is just taking all of the onerous hoops that you have to jump through in the traditional finance space that, again, was not built for computers, and just slapping a really pretty internet-friendly user interface on top of it. So all of these companies, Stripe, when you just tap to pay, it feels simple, but their backend is a hot mess of antiquated interactions. And that's disgusting. Now for us, for crypto people, mass adoption for payments, in my opinion, is halted by one major point, which is the final tap to pay moment at a point of sales transaction. We don't have the ability to take your stablecoins from a wallet and simply Apple Pay it, Google Pay it. This, in my opinion, is how we break through. We just need stablecoins in the beep, and I'm done. Now, is Apple Pay going to accept it? Is Google Pay going to accept it? I mean, they're very walled gardens, and they're going to be very protective. Stripe is a competitor to both of the aforementioned companies, and honestly, they're vying for dominance in the payment processor space. Now, looking at this and sitting on top of an old ass tech stack, this is like entering the Olympics and looking over and being like, ah, shit, my runner is grandpa. He's in his 80s. So Stripe is realizing through the Circle IPO, just through obvious technology, that blockchain is the answer for payments, for moving value, for transacting. And they're absorbing that now. Inside of them will be all of the infrastructure via Privy to build a point of sale system on chain. This means that retailers can probably create their own wallets. They can begin to integrate these sort of transactions and all of the blockchain features in an extremely easy way. I can't stress this enough. I used to go to bodegas back in New York and in Brooklyn, and I would go to them day over day and say, hey, would you accept Bitcoin? This was in the evangelism phase. And getting them set up was arduous. It was tough. I mean, the technological curve, the waiting 10 minutes, right? Ethereum lowered that waiting period, but it was still a delay when you're trying to leave and get the hell out of there. I got my hairstylist on board, probably paid for a lot of haircuts in ETH at a very low price, under $20 or $30. So he did well there, but it was hard. They need to pull out their phone, all the frictionless, seamless stuff that we get from Stripe, that we get from Apple Pay, that we get from credit cards. It just didn't work with crypto, and it has not worked. And now we're looking at the biggest point of sale provider of tech, right? When they turn those things around. I mean, how often is it Stripe? And you just tap and you say whatever, and you walk away. Now, Stripe is going to say, hey, do you want to pay with a credit card, or do you want to use your stables? And this is freaking crazy, because maybe you get paid in stables and you immediately inside the app set a bot to go provide liquidity, to say Hyperliquid. There's amazing APY for stable coins to take advantage of, because these applications want TVL, total value locked, and they're willing to pay for it. In order to get the liquidity that keeps these financial applications breathing and living, they need the stable coins. So while these stablecoin issuers like Circle and Tether, they're not sharing the yield, and they're a very amazing business model in that regard, there does remain far better opportunities for stables to generate yield via on-chain activities than you will ever find in the real world without, deploying millions of dollars and being a very large scale whale. So it's really hard to undersell the importance of this news, because again, we are looking at mass adoption. And this is something that we've been fantasizing about, that we've been chasing. And fuck, it's here. And it's coming from Stripe, something I use all the time. And let's be real, once we do payments, once blockchain's underneath, why do these companies not compete to become the everything app? Again, if we can do on-chain transactions, why don't we buy the tokens? Why don't we buy what's coming? Equities on-chain, right? This is going to compete with the S&P, with the NASDAQ, to say, hey, we can tokenize all of the stocks. We can tokenize all of the bonds. And shit, I could set up my Stripe to say, yo, round up every payment that I make and put those extra pennies, those extra cents into an investment, to put into long-term returns. And this is something that society has been working towards for a long time. Obviously, the only way to move up these days has been through investments, through portfolio creation and accumulation. And this is just such a big unlock. This is something that should excite you? Obviously excited me. So now I presented 3 different versions coming out very freshly regarding mass adoption from the regulators, from Ukraine, one of the most spotlit countries in the world, to the Privy acquisition by Stripe. I will leave you with one little laugh, a funny story that I did discover, which is that Andrew Tate, the king asshole of toxic masculinity, he just put out to his community that he did a hyperliquid trade that was 138.5% profitable. And then he promoted his reference link, of which he earned some rewards on top of. Now, the funny thing is that he didn't think through this tech stack. And again, transparency is beautiful. So those in the know went to Hyperliquid, they banged in his wallet address, and lo and behold, he's 600K in the red. That came out. He quickly deleted the tweet, but it is now something spreading, and this definitely impacts his super machismo air to him. And of course, every crack in the wall of fake is worth paying attention to. This just goes to show how much people in the media itself, and the algorithms are pushing actual non-factual bullshit, and we should be wary. So just thanks to Hyperliquid and his transparency for revealing that this dude is indeed an asshat. With that being said, markets are looking strong. Again, mass adoption's coming. The regulators open up more opportunities for traditional companies to do things like Stripe acquiring Privy. With greater buy-side appetite like traditional finance, like nations like Ukraine, then we have a more realistic appetite for these assets. I do think Hyperliquid and everything it's doing is starting to push us away from the meme coin trend to say, hey, when real money comes in, it wants revenue-generating assets. We will get more revenue-generating assets via the regulators loosening their grip on what is a digital security, something they never defined. And all of this packages up together to create the mass adoption of lore. These are very exciting times. They're not something I expected to really see so soon. And all I got to say is fuck yeah, I'm here for it. So with that being said, good luck, everybody. Don't lever up, and I'll see you tomorrow.